Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am thrilled to be your guide today as we explore the incredibly dynamic world of business strategy. To kick things off, I want you to imagine a fantastic independent Canadian coffee shop. Let's call it Maple Brew. Now, Maple Brew makes literally the best lattes in Toronto. They've got the friendliest staff, and the shop is always spotless. But here's the big question. Is that actually enough to survive? The reality is, organizations absolutely do not operate in a vacuum. Today, we're going to figure out how to analyze the rapidly changing world outside the four walls of a business, ensuring it doesn't just survive, but truly thrives. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First up, we'll define the external business environment. Then we'll dive into PEST analysis. After that, we'll unpack Porter's 5 competitive forces. Next, we'll look at how to integrate these strategies into actionable planning. And finally, we'll wrap things up with a solid conclusion. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the external business environment. It's all about understanding the world outside your organization. Okay, let's dive into this. You see, if Maple Brew only ever looks inward at their own operations, they're going to completely miss shifting consumer habits or totally fail to adapt to digital tech like mobile ordering. Ignoring those massive external shifts, that can destroy even the strongest competitive advantage. The legendary management strategist, Michael Porter, hit the nail on the head when he said, external analysis helps organizations understand industry structures and competitive forces that determine profitability. Because continuously scanning the outside world isn't just some abstract academic exercise. It's what allows managers to actually spot opportunities to exploit and threats to address long before they become fatal. It reduces uncertainty and helps you put your money where the real growth is. To really wrap our heads around this, it helps to split the external environment into 2 distinct levels. On one side, we have the macro environment. We're talking about broad, uncontrollable factors that affect basically all organizations. Think of massive things like Canadian economic inflation or sweeping government policies. Then, on the other side, we have the industry environment. Now, this is much closer to home. This is your direct competitors, your specific suppliers, and your everyday customers. Basically, it's that rival coffee shop opening right across the street. And since these are very different environments, we use very different tools to analyze them. Which brings us to section 2, PEST, analyzing macro factors. Let's look at how to successfully navigate those broad environmental trends. We do this navigation using PEST analysis. It's an incredibly popular strategic tool used to identify and evaluate political, economic, social, and technological factors. Think of it as your essential radar system. It helps organizations anticipate future changes and build appropriate strategies way before those massive macroeconomic weather patterns touch down on our local Canadian coffee shop. Let's actually break down these 4 pillars. Under the political umbrella, governments heavily influence businesses through things like tax policies and labor laws, and those directly hit your operating expenses. Moving over to economic, things like rising inflation literally reduce your customers' purchasing power, and high interest rates, well, they can make borrowing money to open that second cafe way too expensive. Then you have social factors, which cover deep cultural values and shifting age demographics. And finally, technological factors, like automation and digital transformation, which are honestly some of the fastest changing environmental forces we face today. And this brilliantly illustrates how deeply social factors dictate a business's entire target market. When you look at demographic market distributions, you realize that changes in population age completely alter market demand. For instance, a growing senior population obviously drives a massive demand for healthcare services, while a boom in younger demographics drives children's products. For a coffee shop, if the local neighborhood demographics suddenly shift toward remote working young professionals, their social preferences, like needing health-conscious food options and blazing fast Wi-Fi, absolutely have to dictate our business strategy. So we've got our broad, long-term PEST weather forecast, but here is the critical question we have to ask ourselves. How do these massive macro trends actually translate into the daily competitive battles on the ground? How do they affect your daily industry rivals? To answer that, we step into section 3, Porter's 5 competitive forces. We are officially shifting gears from the broad macro environment down into the gritty, specific industry terrain. Developed by Michael Porter back in 1979, Porter's 5 Forces is a strategic analysis framework used to evaluate the competitive intensity, attractiveness, and ultimate profitability of a specific industry. If PEST is our radar for the incoming weather, Porter's model is our microscope. It zooms in on the direct competitive pressures surrounding our Canadian business, helping us understand exactly what factors are eating away at our profit margins.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it visualizes our very first force, the threat of new entrants. When entry barriers are low, new firms can just flood the market and instantly ramp up competition. Think about it. Starting an airline requires massive, totally prohibitive capital. But opening a small retail shop or another independent cafe, that has relatively low capital requirements, which means, unfortunately for Maple Brew, they face a really high threat of new entrants every single day.
Next up, we examine a classic tug-of-war, supplier versus buyer power dynamics. This covers two more forces. Suppliers provide your raw materials. If there are only a few suppliers of high-quality, ethically sourced coffee beans, they hold all the power. They can dictate prices because your switching costs are painfully high. On the flip side, we have the bargaining power of buyers, your customers. If a buyer views a latte as just a highly standardized product and there are 10 other cafes within walking distance, their switching costs are virtually zero. They hold the power, and you better believe they will demand lower prices and better quality. The fourth force is the threat of substitute products. It is absolutely crucial to understand that a substitute isn't just a direct competitor. It is an entirely different product satisfying the exact same underlying need. For example, the substitute for a traditional taxi is a ride-sharing app. The substitute for a printed book is an e-book. For our cafe, if the price of a cup of coffee creeps too high, a customer switching from coffee to tea, or even just grabbing a canned energy drink from their fridge, acts as a substitute. High substitute threats will absolutely slash sales and lower profit margins for the entire industry. The final force is rivalry among existing competitors. When an industry has a ton of competitors, slow growth, high fixed costs, and very low product differentiation, the competition becomes incredibly cutthroat. Firms will literally fight tooth and nail for market share. This is exactly what sparks fierce price wars and spikes in marketing expenses as you battle the franchise cafe down the block, which ultimately just lowers profitability for everyone involved. Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, integrating strategy and planning. We've gathered all this incredible data. Now let's turn that analysis into real action. To build a truly unified strategy, we have to use both of these frameworks together. When you compare them directly, PEST analysis focuses on the macro environment, looking at broad external factors to spot long-term trends. Porter's 5 forces focuses on the industry environment, drilling into direct competitive pressures to determine immediate profitability. Basically, PEST is your long-term weather forecast, and Porter is the immediate, rugged competitive terrain you have to hike through today. They are two essential halves of a complete external understanding. So how do we actually pull this off? Well, there are 5 exact steps an organization must follow for real strategic integration. Step 1, conduct your PEST analysis to find those broad macro opportunities and threats. Step 2, conduct your Porter's analysis to evaluate your direct day-to-day industry competitiveness. Step 3, identify the strategic implications. What do these factors actually mean for your specific business on the ground? Step 4, develop real strategic responses to exploit the opportunities and buffer against the threats. And finally, Step 5, monitor continuously. The environment is literally always changing, so your analysis has to be a living, breathing process. And that brings us to Section 5, conclusion and next steps, anticipating change for real success. As we've seen with our Maple Brew case study, external analysis is not some one-time academic assignment that you finish and shove in a drawer. It's a continuous, vital heartbeat for your business. So the crucial point is this: will your organization anticipate change or simply react to it once it's too late? Because at the end of the day, the businesses that survive are the ones preparing for tomorrow, today. Thank you so much for watching this explainer. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.